Hey everybody, back again for today's chapter of Fuzzy Mud. We're on chapter 32 today. Alright, so we're actually going to read two chapters today because this one's pretty short. It's one of those disaster hearing chapters. So it's just what was said at the hearing, which we talked about. Hearings happen in a courtroom, and they're written sort of like a drama. The notes from it are written sort of like a drama. You can see that there's just the character's name and then what they said. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. This chapter is called Turtles. The following is excerpted from the Heathcliff disaster hearings held 3 months after Tamaya was carried out of the woods. Senator Wright, were you able to determine if these organisms were in fact the same as the organisms that are used in Bioline? Dr. June Lee, she's a research scientist, National Institutes of Health. The DNA is nearly identical, but not exact. We believe that they are a mutated strain of the Bioline organisms. Senator Foote, but aren't there millions of different kinds of microorganisms living on this planet? Dr. June Lee, yes. And most of these have never been studied? That's true. Scientists have identified only about 5% of all the microbes in our biosphere. So, isn't it possible that the organisms found in the fuzzy mud could have evolved naturally from one of these unknown microbes? Dr. June Lee, no, that is highly unlikely. But not impossible? Highly unlikely. If it had evolved naturally, then almost certainly it would have been adapted into the cold climate. What caused the mutation? How did it happen? I can't say. Every time a cell divides, there is a small possibility of a mutation. But with billions upon billions of divisions occurring all the time, mutations will happen. It's inevitable. How did this supposedly mutated ergonym get from Sunray Farm to the woods of Heathcliff? Again, we don't know. A bug, a bird, a wind current, anything could have brought it. Even if all you say is true, Dr. Lee, the important question is this. Is this the original ergonym? Is it dangerous? I'm talking about the one currently used in Bioline, not the mutation. Is it dangerous either to people or to the environment? No. Since the original ergonym cannot survive in oxygen, it poses no danger. But, like I said, mutations will occur. As far as what those future mutations may be, I cannot say, but there will be more mutations. That is a certainty. Thank you, Doctor, for your testimony and for your work in the NIH. The country is very grateful that you and your agency were able to find a cure for this horrible disease. Thank you, but actually it was Dr. Crumbly, a local veterinarian, who discovered the cure. We at NIH helped in the testing and mass production, but it is Dr. Crumbly who deserves your thanks. Excuse me, did you just say Dr. Crumbly is a vet? Animals suffered just as badly as humans. If it weren't for Dr. Crumbly, I suppose the future of the earth would have been ruled by turtles. Chapter 33, Frankengerms. The man who rescued Tamaya did find out soon enough. The whole world found out about the mud. Within hours of the children's rescue, everyone who had been involved in the search began showing signs of the rash. Redness, small bumps, a tingling sensation. By the next morning, many of these bumps had turned into blisters, and people awoke to find a mysterious powder the color of their skin on their bed sheets. As it turned out, the powder was their skin, or what was left of it after the mutated ergonyms ate the good parts. 1 week after Tamaya, Chad, and Marshall were found in the woods, there were more than 500 cases of the rash in the town of Heathcliff. After 2 weeks, the number had grown to 15,000. Many people didn't seek treatment until it was too late. One of the most insidious things about the rash was that there was no pain, just a mild tingling sensation. Normally, nerve cells send a pain message to the brain, but the microorganisms ate through the portion of the cell that transmits the message. It was like a telephone line had been cut. The nerve cells were screaming, "Help! Alert! Danger!" but the brain never got the message. About the same time that Tamaya, Marshall, and Chad were being loaded into an ambulance, the searchers found the dead body of a person who had been living in the woods, a man with a very long beard. The 3 lost children were rushed to Heathcliff Regional Hospital. The samples of the mud were taken from Tamaya's hair and clothes and sent to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta. and to the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. Photos of her hand and arm, as well as Chad's face, were emailed to those agencies as well. The doctors at the hospital searched the medical books and internet but could find no record of this type of rash. There was no known cure. The best they could do for Tamaya was to keep her extremely clean. She was thoroughly washed, her hair was cut off, and her head was shaved. For the next few weeks, she was given round-the-clock sponge baths. Every 2 hours, morning, noon, and night, a nurse would wash her with rubbing alcohol. After each bath, she had to rinse her mouth with a special mouthwash. It stung and tasted terrible, and she had to keep it in her mouth for a minute before they allowed her to spit it out. She didn't mind one bit. It tasted strong. Her mother, and then later her father, came to visit, although they weren't allowed to touch her. She told them she was sorry, but they kept on telling her how proud they were of her. Later, the epidemic spread through Heathcliff. All visitors were banned from the hospital, including her parents. She could still talk to them on her cell phone, which her father had given her. Her vision didn't deteriorate any further. If she held her hand in front of her face, she could see it was her hand, but that might have been because she already knew it. It was her hand. Oh, that may have been because she already knew it was her hand. Her doctor tried various other shapes and objects. She could correctly identify a circle, a square, and a triangle, but when he held up a woman's high-heeled shoe, she guessed it was a banana. She asked about Marshall and Chad. She heard Marshall was doing fairly well, but she wasn't allowed to see him. Chad was in very serious condition. That was all she could find out about him. She was told that if he had arrived at the hospital even 20 minutes later, he probably wouldn't have survived. She never complained. Sometimes when she felt scared, she'd repeat to herself 10 virtues that she'd been made to memorize at Woodbridge Academy. Charity, cleanliness, courage, empathy, grace, humility, integrity, patience, prudence, temperance. Partly she thought that if she was really, really good, then the rash would go away and then she'd be able to see again. Deep down, she was also preparing herself for the worst. In case she didn't get better, she wanted to be able to face the world with courage, patience, and grace. She learned to recognize her different nurses, not only by their voices, but also by the sounds they made when they entered the room to give her another sponge bath. Everyone continued to assure her that the best scientists in the country were working on a cure. Everyone acted so calm and reassuring around her. It was only when she talked to Monica that she found out that the rest of the world was totally freaked out. The fuzzy mud's everywhere, Monica told her. School's closed. Not just Woodridge, all schools. No one goes outside. I'm not even supposed to talk to you because my mom's afraid of the franken-germs will come through the phone. Everyone called it fuzzy mud, the term Tamaya used when she'd arrived at the hospital. Even the scientists who could be seen throughout Heathcliff dressed in their hazmat suits called it that. Dr. Humbard, a former employee of Sunray Farm, appeared on all the cable news shows, which was probably why the mutated organisms were now being called franken-germs. The hospitals ran out of room, and the schools were turned into rash treatment centers. Cots were set up in the classrooms and cafeterias. Sheets were hung up to provide privacy for the round-the-clock sponge baths administered by dedicated nurses who also wore full hazmat suits. The president ordered Heathcliff and the surrounding area to be put under quarantine. No one was allowed to leave, whether or not they showed symptoms of the rash. The airport and railroad stations were closed. The Pennsylvania National Guard patrolled the roads and highways. Be sure to tune in to Flipgrid to take part in our discussion today. Y'all have a great day.